Fund Supermart, your online gateway to unit trusts.
We are very pleased today to have two managers from Nikko AM, Kenneth and Huan. So what are the key reasons why investors should look at ASEAN?
Well, ASEAN is a very significant economic entity. There are more than 600 million people in ASEAN. And if it was a single country, it would be the third largest economy in Asia after China and Japan. Now, unlike China and Japan, the demographics of ASEAN is very favorable, and we think that underpins its economic as well as investment case. People also know that ASEAN has delivered healthy growth in the past, but what is perhaps not as well known is that the growth is actually very high quality and very defensive. Now, if you look at the variability of growth over the last 10 to 15 years for ASEAN, you will find that this is one of the lowest among the economic regions and countries around the world.
With growth slowing almost everywhere in the world, why is now a good time to invest in ASEAN?
Well, it's true. Growth is slowing almost everywhere in the world, and including ASEAN. But the growth rate in ASEAN is still one of the most attractive around the world. We're looking at 4 to 5%, and in an environment where there is almost no growth in many countries, this is still very attractive in our view. Valuations are cheap. We're talking about a 1.5 times price to book, and this is actually quite close to the bottom seen during the global as well as the Asian financial crisis. Lastly, we think that ASEAN stocks will be well supported in an environment of continued low interest rates. And in the post-Brexit scenario, we are even more confident that the major central banks around the world will be encouraged to maintain an accommodative monetary stance.
So this question is for Kenneth. What investment themes do you like in ASEAN?
Well, we believe ASEAN's compelling investment case can be summarized by three key convictions. The first is that we believe ASEAN is restoring its role as a revived factory of Asia. With most of the population below 30 years old, we believe ASEAN offers investors with one of the fastest and youngest growing labor markets in Asia today. Compare that with other large economies such as China, where we are actually seeing an inflection point where labor growth is declining. We believe ASEAN is a very attractive story. The second theme that we like in ASEAN is that we believe that ASEAN is actually experiencing a boom in its middle class. We think that ASEAN has great demographics, and with great demographics, we have a young population which will actually spur demand in the middle class. A stronger middle class is actually aligned with higher consumption and greater investment spending in the region. The final and third theme that we like in ASEAN is we believe there is a global rebalancing of foreign direct investments, and the center of these developments is actually in ASEAN today. We think that there is a great amount of infrastructure, property as well as real estate investments to be made in ASEAN, and many large economies such as the US, Japan and China are all gravitating towards ASEAN as a growth opportunity in the coming years.
Are there any other compelling factors which ASEAN can offer?
Oh, certainly there is. As you have witnessed today or this year, there has been clearly a lot of political events happening around the world, and we believe politics will play an important role in investment decisions today as well. If you look at ASEAN, we find that political reforms is actually a very positive driver in ASEAN this year. For example, in Indonesia, President Jokowi is in his second year of government with much stronger political support and a focus on reforms. In the Philippines, you have a new president that is also pro-growth and pro-investment. In Vietnam, you have actually transited towards a new political leadership over the next 5 years. And finally, in Thailand, we have a military government that is very keen on stimulating the economy through a fiscal program to actually help accelerate investment in the region. So politics is actually positive in ASEAN. Furthermore, this year has also been a very interesting year where we've seen the start of many economic integration initiatives. For example, the AEC, as well as the TPP, which are initiatives to help spur growth. If that is successful, there's a lot more growth potential in Asia, right? Especially in ASEAN. And we see the US as well as China both trying very hard to pivot in Asia as a result of these developments.
What countries or sectors do you like most in ASEAN?
Among the countries, we like Vietnam, which is not a country that people normally talk about in the ASEAN context. Economic growth is very healthy and is underpinned by a very competitive manufacturing capability. Now that is bringing in a healthy flow of FDI, and that's creating good jobs and lifting incomes, which is supporting demand for things like infrastructure, real estate, and consumer goods. In terms of sectors, we don't really look at sectors in the traditional way. We like what we call the new ASEAN, and these are companies which embody, of course, the future of ASEAN. And they may be like in sectors like technology. We like, for example, auto technology, or they could be in services. We like, in particular, healthcare and tourism. And lastly, we like companies which benefit from the greater integration which is taking place in ASEAN, especially in the logistics sector.
So can you tell us more about your investment approach?
Of course, we are fundamental investors and we are bottom-up focused. This means we pick stocks and we like companies which have a sustainable competitive advantage and which show positive fundamental change. We have a team of 8 dedicated sector analysts. We support all our equity strategies, including the ASEAN equity strategy.